Now here's why it is catastrophically wrong. Someone has to decide which voices represent oppression and which voices represent liberation. Whoever holds institutional power makes that call. It's not left versus right. It's a deliberate strategy, documented, debated, and decades in the making. It has been running for 50 years, and your children are in that revolution right now. In the 1930s, a communist philosopher named Antonio Gramsci sat in Mussolini's prison and wrote down the most dangerous idea of the 20th century. He said, you do not need guns to take over a democracy. You need the universities. Capture the professors, and the professors shape the students. The students become the lawyers, the journalists, the executives, the politicians. One generation later, the revolution is complete, and nobody has fired a shot. I know what you're thinking. That sounds a lot like a conspiracy theory. So let me give you the facts. Today, employees at Google, Facebook, Nike, and Disney register higher levels of progressive political ideology than the faculty at UC Berkeley. Consulting firms like Deloitte and Accenture now lean further left than several departments of the federal government. The ideology that started in the faculty lounge has reached the boardroom. Now, does that make sense to you? It did not happen by accident. And today I'm going to show you the left's argument, the right's argument, and what common sense says we must do before it's too late. Welcome, patriots, to this edition of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's dive in. Here is the progressive argument, and I want you to hear it fully. America's founding institutions were not neutral. The original Constitution counted certain human beings as 3/5 of a person. Women could not vote until 1920. The GI Bill of 1944 sent 8 million veterans to college, but most black veterans were systematically excluded by local administrators. The left's argument is this: when the institutions that shape society were built with exclusion baked in, reforming them from the inside is not subversion, it is correction. When progressive scholars pushed into universities and corporations, many of them genuinely believed they were leveling a playing field that was never level to begin with. When corporations adopted diversity programs, many did so out of sincere concern that they were unequal, that they had to correct inequality. They did not do it out of a secret ideological agenda. Here's the thing: the historical grievances that they were concerned about are real. A fair person on the right has to acknowledge that. Now, here's the conservative argument. Between 1960 and 1990, the two-parent black family, which survived slavery, Jim Crow, and systematic oppression, they began that period in 1960 with 78% of the black children being born into two-parent homes. By 1990, that number had dropped to 66%. That was in just 30 years. Now, Thomas Sowell's research shows that collapse accelerated precisely as the Great Society welfare programs expanded. Not because of racism, because the programs themselves created incentives that destroyed family formation. Now, that's what we call unintended consequences of ill-conceived programs. Today, 60% of college students report self-censoring their views in class. Not because their ideas are wrong, it's because they're afraid of the consequences. The right's argument is this: when institutions stop testing ideas against evidence and start enforcing ideological conformity, the people they claim to help get hurt the worst. And here's the thing: the evidence supports that argument. But here's the real problem. It's not left versus right, it's a deliberate strategy, documented, debated, and decades in the making. A deliberate strategy to reshape the institutions that form what Americans believe before the conversation even begins. The question is not whether universities have drifted left. They certainly have. The question is whether the drift was purely organic or whether it was guided by a specific intellectual framework. And the evidence points hard in one direction, that it was guided by a specific intellectual framework. Now, we go to great lengths to research our topics here to make sure we're telling you the truth, that we're giving you accurate information. And I want you to really be cognizant of that because I'm about to tell you some things I don't think you've ever heard. The truth is what we're about here. And here's something I don't think any of you have heard before. Herbert Marcuse was a Frankfurt School philosopher who in 1969 published a doctrine he called repressive tolerance. Here is what he actually argued. And I want to give it a fair hearing before I tell you why I think it's a dangerous argument. Marcuse started from the real observation. He said that in a society when there are powerful institutions, corporations, media, government, already dominant, the conversation, so-called neutral tolerance, is not actually neutral. It just protects the powerful and silences the powerless. Now that's his statement. His prescription was what he called liberating tolerance. That was to actively amplify the voices from the marginalized left, actively suppress voices from the right, and voices from traditional institutions. He framed this not as censorship, but as correcting an already unequal system. That is his argument, presented as fairly as I can give it. Now here's why it is catastrophically wrong. The moment you accept that framework, someone has to decide which voices represent oppression and which voices represent liberation. Whoever holds institutional power makes that call. And over the following 50 years, as Marcuse's ideas migrated from philosophy journals into HR departments, university administrations, corporate training programs, that is exactly what happened. Communist and socialist strategy he articulated required, and I'm paraphrasing him directly here, the withdrawal of tolerance from conservative movements before they could become active, and active intolerance towards the political right. He wrote that down in 1969. It was not a prediction, it was a manual. Now, Rudi Dutschke, the German student leader, named the operational strategy I just articulated, that Marcuse's strategy, he named it the long march through the institutions of society. Target was not the ballot box. It was the faculty meeting, because whoever controls the faculty meeting controls the next generation. Now, I cannot dismiss that Marcuse's student, Erika Sharover Marcuse, developed the consciousness-raising framework that became the foundation of modern DEI training. I cannot dismiss that 2 top National Intelligence Council officials were fired in 2025 for producing assessments that contradicted the administration's preferred conclusions. When institutions punish people for telling the truth, that is Marcuse's withdrawal of tolerance in operation, regardless of which party is running the institution. As I said to my colleague recently, this is a coordinated campaign that has been going on for decades. The socialists and the communists have infiltrated college institutions and all levels of government. They are tremendous organizers, and the right has not built an infrastructure to match them. The answer is not to fight institutional capture with more institutional capture. I mean, that road leads to a country where nobody trusts anything. The answer is what Thomas Sowell called the first lesson of economics, which is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to satisfy everyone who wants it. Applied here, there is not enough institutional power for one ideology to control everything forever. Competition beats monopolies. It breaks monopolies down. It always has. Let us bring competition to the discussion of ideas and philosophies. So here's the common sense solution. Give parents school choice so that no single ideological framework holds a monopoly over their children's education. Demand that universities receiving federal funding demonstrate genuine diversity of viewpoints, not just demographic diversity, and insist that corporations be evaluated on performance, not ideology. Reagan said it at Westminster in England in 1982. He said, "The march of freedom and democracy will leave Marxism on the ash heap of history." He was right. But freedom does not defend itself. It requires citizens who understand what they're defending. Here's what you need to remember. The most consequential revolution in American history has required no weapons. It has required patience, organization, and control of the classroom. It has been running for 50 years, and your children are in that revolution right now. Now, this matters because a nation that cannot think freely cannot stay free. Talk about this with your family tonight. Ask your kids what they're being taught and whether those ideas are being tested against facts or simply accepted as true. Now, tell me in our comments section what you are seeing in your community and what you think. Now, next time, we examine the full historical and economic case of capitalism versus socialism. The numbers will surprise you. Until then, may God bless you and yours, and God bless America.